The BBC is facing a major crisis. Many of its top executives are facing MPs and being heavily criticised for signing off massive payoffs to leading BBC members of staff. When these members of staff were made redundant or sacked, large sums of money were used to facilitate their exit. Now, every single private company always does that, and nobody ever bats an eyelid. So why is there such a row over the BBC? Well, the reason is simple. The BBC is financed via the licence fee, and the licence fee is a tax, which means that all of the BBC's revenues are effectively taxpayers' money. And that's why it's of interest to MPs, and that's why it's their job to scrutinise how the money is spent. So there's a good solution for the BBC to move on. And the answer is, let's scrap the licence fee. Let's adopt a much more modern system for the BBC to finance itself. And that modern system should be a voluntary subscription. That kind of model is compatible with today's society and our freedom of choice and the values that we have in other areas of our society when it comes to the ability of people to spend money on what they want, but not spend money on what they don't want. In other words, consumers should have the right to subscribe to the BBC if they want to access its TV or its website. If they don't pay, then they can't access it. It'd be exactly the same model as currently used by Sky, currently used by Virgin, or currently used by hundreds of media companies all around the world. And I think that would be of interest actually to the BBC. Until now, the BBC has resisted this kind of change because they know that they lose some of their revenues. They're not going to get 100% of the public paying up. They might get 90% or 85%, and they'd have to compete much more vigorously for customers. But nevertheless, I think it's now in the BBC's interest, their own interest, to adopt such a model because it would allow them more freedom. It would mean that they would be allowed to spend their money, as they see fit, rather than be endlessly scrutinised by MPs, and rather than see these MPs force them to adopt much more restrictive practices when it comes to recruiting talent. So I think it's a modern move for the BBC. It's time for it to embrace consumer choice and to move away from the antiquated financing mechanism that is a licence fee.